All right. Are we live, people?
Oh, yes, we're live, Luke.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit. And we are split. We're like the Brady Bunch tonight. We're all over the place.
Actually, two of us are in the same state. The other two are not so much.
Yeah, not so much. So, hi, my name's Craig or Crafty from Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit and Craftworks Distillery. And to my left, it's Michael Hope from Hope Estate and Hope Distillery. G'day, Michael.
Hey, Crafty. How you doing? Hey, boys.
Hello.
G'day, mate.
Yeah, nice to have
And
you
then
on.
above me, I have Luke, who is the glue, who is currently out of the country, and it shows. And Luke is in the UK. G'day, Luke. How are you?
Hello. I'm enjoying the sunshine. I'm having to move around my little UK courtyard here so I don't have the sun bearing down on me. It's actually hot in the UK, if you can imagine such a thing.
Wonderful.
You lucky bastard.
Now, hold
freezing,
on, I'm going to
eh?
get my directions right. So up in the that corner, up there, is a very stressed out individual in Sydney sitting at home.
There apparently isn't
the one and only
so he's
Todd,
going to go on strike shortly.
He's going to go on strike soon. He is the glue tonight that's holding this whole thing together. And
Literally.
I am in day 3 in Wodonga because I blew a clutch. And my day 3 is going into day 4, waiting for parts for my ute. So I am live from my hotel room, hence the decor. Classic Australian brick. Classic Australian brick. And we are now going to have some fun. So, Michael, we start first with what is in your glass. What are you drinking tonight?
I haven't even got myself set up tonight. I'm bloody in bed. I'm freezing. I think, Crafty, I think we should talk whiskey.
We will.
We will.
That's the plan. We're going to deep dive into whiskey, but we'll go through the ceremonial what we're drinking. So I'm drinking an Australian classic because that's all I could find. And I do love
make a good bundy from time to time. You're right.
I do. It's my dirty secret when I distill. I do like a Bundy and Coke from time to time. So, Luke, what are you drinking?
I've done a little better than you. So I'm over in the UK on a holiday, and I was wandering around. I don't even know where I was. One of the boroughs of London. And I came across Cadenheads. Cadenheads being an indie bottler.
Yeah.
So I picked up a little bottle of the Glenlivet 16-year-old bourbon hogshead.
Very nice.
Distilled in 16 years. Distilled in 08. So a Campbelltown Scotch. I've also found the glasses in my flat here are not really conducive to a whiskey, so I found from a little Poundland a little 1 pound glass. So that's my my tipple for the morning.
For the morning, there's a nice breakfast whiskey there.
Breakfast whiskey.
Indeed.
All right, Todd.
11 a.m. It's a pre-lunch dram.
Since showing you all the bottles that I try to drink don't really work so well, I've pre-prepared myself. So I'm going to be tasting the samples that Michael so generously gave us. That's 200 ml samples. So thank you, Michael. I'm going to really enjoy these by myself. Anyway, I guess.
And the boys will enjoy hearing about them.
Yeah, we will. And hopefully there'll be some left.
Oh, there will
yes, we sent enough for everybody.
Yeah,
excellent.
And Crafty, to answer your question, I quickly grabbed a pale ale out of the fridge.
Oh, very nice, mate. Very nice. Very nice indeed. Well, let's rip into it, eh? So let's talk. And I really am intrigued because you're a winery, you're a brewery, you run concerts, you're an experiential place, and now you're a distillery, and you've been a distillery some time, and you're releasing your first whiskies. So let's just dive in straight away and say, tell us about the whiskies.
Yeah, well, the whiskey sort of came about, obviously the starting point to making whiskies, having a brewery. And we put our brewery in 2014. I think I remember I had my first beers ready for the Bruce Springsteen concert. I got sick of buying crap beer off the big guys and said, I'll have a go at trying to make some beer because we're making pretty decent wine, selling that at concerts. So we stuck the brewery in, and then I was sort of thinking, more I started to think about it, probably just pre-COVID, we started to, probably not 2019, 2020, started to think, well, you're right, Kraft, you're an experiential venue in the middle of the Hunter. And how many people are looking for something more than just beer or wine? We said, well, let's start to think about spirits. So I'm a man of science. I'm a pharmacist by trade. So I started doing some sort of research on that. And it's like, well, hang on. What do I need to make whiskey? I need a brewery. Tick, I got one of those. Shit, what would help is if I've got warehousing, fridge plants, labs, all those things, refrigeration and whatnot. I go, yeah, okay, I've got that. We'd started breeding cattle that needed grain. I go, well, that'll really work. And we need a heap of barrels. So we had a heap of wine barrels. So it's like, well, shit, let's just have a go. I'll buy in a 2,000-litre still from Mark Burns in Griffith. Made me one special, nice little copper pot still. And we said, well, let's just have a go. And it was just, look, the good thing about being in the good or the bad thing about being in the wine industry, you're so used to putting stock away for years and years and years. So I wasn't perturbed by having to put whiskey away for years. And it was just, we started tasting it after a few months and went, holy shit, this stuff's starting to look all right. So it was just really an experiment, and we're blown away with how it's turned out.
Wow.
That's quite funny because you talk to new distillers and they lay barrels, and for them it's like, now we've got a long way. Everything's just put away. But you've got wine background. It's like, suck it up, sunshine. This is the world we're used to.
So where do you get your wine barrels from again?
I go and knock on the doors of all the wineries. We had them everywhere. The frustration, you guys might have even heard this, your bloody wineries, I used to sell my wine barrels off for $50. Whole wine barrels for flower pots. Yeah. And then it was only when we started to think about the whiskey, it's like, okay, no more barrels for sale, we'll hang on to them.
So how much do you think you're laying down now that whiskey and spirits are becoming a larger part of the business? How much are you starting to lay down?
We've got a couple of 100 barrels.
Already? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, my view, and like I said, we wanted the grain also for the because we've got 400 Angus cattle. We're about to open a steakhouse, so we breed our own cattle. So it's sort of it goes hand in hand with obviously the distilling. So when things get a bit quieter over winter, when we're not selling as much beer, I throw the boys at making a heap of whiskey wash and trying to lay a heap down. So it's just taking a punt, and it seems to be going okay.
Yeah, wow.
That's a really unique situation you got there. I can't think of any other, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of any other distillery that is integrated to that extent, as far as barrels and barley and brewing and distillery.
To a degree, I'd say Morris, to a degree, but they don't have the beer brewing, the brewery aspect, and then they certainly don't have the farming aspect off the tail of that as well. Where else can you go? What else are you going to do?
I'm getting old and worn out. I think there's something nearly to us. It's interesting when I sort of describe it to people, and had some press through up here, and it's like, well, the whiskey's the part of the business that ties everything together. It ties in, obviously, the brewery. It ties in the winery with the barrels. It ties in our beef business, because I say we're about to launch a steakhouse down in Newcastle, nice big steakhouse. It just ties everything together. So, I sort of say about Hope Estate, beer, wine, spirits, beef. And the whiskey's the one that it's the glue that holds everything together, or it's the hub of the wheel that ties everything together. So whiskey to me is sort of the pinnacle of my whole journey, or our whole journey for the last 30 years, starting in wine, then getting into concerts, getting into beer, getting into the cattle just before the distilling. It's the whiskey to me is sort of the pinnacle.
I don't think you're in any vineyard saying that the whiskey is the glue to our vineyard.
Well, the wine, I can politely say, Todd, the wine industry around the world's fairly stuffed through just sheer overproduction around the world, and obviously we've had the China hassle as well, where the big tariffs came in. But there's just an overproduction of wine, and the killer with wine, if you compare that to beer, or spirits, the killer with wine is you get a crop every year of grapes. So whether you need your Shiraz grapes or not, they grow on the vine, and you've got to harvest them. So that's what causes the massive oversupply in wine. Whereas beer and brewing and distilling, you can make what you want to demand based on demand.
And was the decision to make whiskey as opposed to brandy because you also had the brewery kicking away there?
Oh, we got brandy in barrel, don't you worry.
Oh yeah, okay.
Now we started that probably about a year later. We just hoed into the whiskey first, and then we said, geez, we better put some brandy down. So we've been doing that, using both reds and whites, just to again see how they go.
That's
obviously
one of our good friends of the show, Mark Rainier, also started off in the wine side of business before he went over to whiskey.
Oh, Terroir. I think that someone mentioned Terroir.
No,
just slightly. It snuck out a little.
Now, the Hope brand is obviously a very strong brand. You've been around for a long time. Obviously, the estate itself up in the Hunter is gorgeous. Pleasure of coming in there and having a wander around and having a drink and trying the brewery and whatnot. I haven't had the pleasure of coming and experiencing one of your massive events there yet. But looking at the sample bottle that Todd put up on the screen just before, you've gone with a different brand there, Tower.
Yeah, look, rationale behind that. There's so Hope Estate, it's now the biggest winery left in the Hunter after Rosemount shut down. Biggest winery amphitheatre probably close to one of the biggest in the world. We can fit 21,000 people when we had Red Hot Chili Peppers. So wow. Hope is a more, it's a bigger venue, and we'd started selling gin and vodka, as everyone does when we first kicked off, with just a little 200-litre still beside the brewery. And then we thought, you know what, we owned the property over the road where I am now, called Tower Lodge, which was built by the late, great Len Evans, the wine guru, and the syndicate, built in 2000. And that was to emulate a world-renowned lodge. It was the fanciest accommodation in the Hunter by a mile, still is. Mm-hmm. And it had a winery down the front on Broke Road, just opposite Hope Estate. Mm-hmm. And we shut that down. The winemaking was moved over the road to Hope when we bought Tower. And we lived here for 8 years before we did a big renovation 2 years ago. Opened it up again to the public, the lodge, and the cellar door shut down the start of COVID. So then we thought, you know what? I looked at the building and thought it's a beautiful building, and it's more upmarket than Hope. I'd probably describe Hope as more a mass market type venue with the concerts and everything we do. And I thought, wow, that would really lend itself to a nice boutique whiskey distillery. So we decided to throw the whiskey still in there, and the cellar door stayed shut for 3 years. until we had our grand opening in December. So the reason, long-winded story, but it's a better fit to me for the whiskey that sits so much higher than our beers, our gin, and our vodkas.
Yeah, right.
Is how I looked at it. So I just thought it needed its own luxury, unique, smaller volume look and feel, if you like. That's why we've gone, square, thick bottles, full copper labels. That's sort of where we thought it was a better fit.
Okay.
Right.
It's the goods. Now I got a question. I love talking to winemakers and I love talking to brewers because to me there's a lot of similarities in whiskey making and brewing and making wine. A lot of crossover technology, a lot of crossover lingo, a lot of crossover understanding. So you're at a very unique position because you're coming at it from the winery perspective and the learnings from the winery, but also the learnings from the brewery, and then applying it in your whiskey making. How do you see you've taken those skill sets and applied it into whiskey making, Michael?
Yeah, look, it's a really good point, Crafty. I think that's why I've thought all along we've got such a head start. When you look at someone that tries to go and kick off a whiskey business, we had such a head start having our own brewery and also having the wine side. So the brewing side to me is critical early in obviously getting our whiskey wash produced, what our malt bill's going to be, ferment temperatures, mashing temps, things like that. So the science of brewing was really important to get a really good, clean wash that had the characters we wanted. Right. And then secondly, the winemaking comes to its own, obviously in the barrel selection, aging the spirit in barrels, and just the unique characters we can get out of the barrels. So it's like, to me, they're two important parts of the whiskey journey. And we're lucky that we've got experience in both that I think really, really helped us. To me, it took a lot of the guesswork out of it because I'm just a man of science, and I look at it and I go, well, okay, let's focus on getting that right in the brewery, and let's focus on, trying to do the best we can as though we've got the best wine in the world. Pretend we've got the best wine, and it's just going to be whiskey in barrels.
That's cool. Well, Todd, you've got some whiskey there. We don't. So why don't you walk us through what you've got there, and Michael can run through what the products are and how they're put together.
Okay. Well, since you've sort of seen me putting up the little pictures, actually, while I get that all set up, do you want to just answer this question from Ian?
G'day, Ian.
So, Ian, is the same brewer's yeast used for the whiskey, or is the distiller's yeast used instead?
We actually use a brewer's yeast.
Boom.
There you go.
Flavor, people. Flavor.
Good. All right.
Can you tell us which one, or is that trade secret?
No, the main one we use is US05.
Yeah, right.
Safale US05.
Tried and true.
Yeah, exactly.
The first whiskey that I've been trying is the B1, which I believe is a Jim Beam bourbon cask.
That's right, Todd. And yeah, look, this is where the wine side came in, because obviously it sat for 2.5 years in 2.5 years in the old Jim Beam bourbon barrel, and it's like, okay, well, I suppose I'll go back one step. What my aim was, and what I've learned about having beers and wines on the market, and so many people coming to the cellar door, is people like to learn something. And to me, you learn more out of whether you're tasting beers, wines, or now whiskies in looking at the differences. So my brief to the guys and what we really focused on was I wanted to have 4 whiskies to launch with, because there's no use coming in just to taste one. So I wanted to do a flight of 4 whiskies. So I said, we've got to make 4 whiskies that are totally unique. not just you can't tell a difference in them. So the first was obviously use a bourbon barrel, but then I really wanted to get some punchy vanilla sweet characters in it. So I actually finished it off. We bought in a brand new white American white oak from Missouri. We bought in, because these are all single cask, we bought in a brand new barrel and just finished it off in that, just to really get some enhanced vanilla, nice sweet characters in it.
So that's quite an unusual approach. I know myself, I've never touched virgin oak yet. I've been making whiskey for 9 years, and I'm too scared to go near virgin oak, but I know people have success with the virgin oak. But you really got to know what you're doing, don't you? Because you got to tame those beasts, don't you?
Yeah, and again, I agree, Crafty, and I think again that's where our wine background comes in. We wouldn't put it in. We wouldn't put new make straight into virgin oak. It was only just to finish it off, and we sort of tasted it weekly just to see when we thought it had enough. So it was just like to give it a little bit of a punch at the end is probably how I describe it.
So what is that process when you're talking weeks of finishing? What does that process look like in the case of the B1?
What do you mean? The process goes for about, I think we were a bit over 2 months to finish off. Yep. So it's just rack it out of the old bourbon barrel, and then we put some more new make in that, and then we it was just a single rinse of the new Quercus alba, the white Missouri oak, and we just filled that up, and so like I said, we just tasted it weekly, and it picked up the characters. I can see why you're a bit nervous, Crafty. It picked up character really, really quickly. We were blown away and went, wow. Because you wouldn't want to leave it in there 12 months or anything. We just think it'd just overpower.
Yeah, wow.
It's become quite an interesting whiskey. It's quite spicy, which I guess is probably the new French oak cask biting through. And it doesn't taste like your traditional sort of bourbon cask.
I imagine it amplifies. It just adds almost like a freshness to the finish.
It's a bit like chewing on a bit of straw in some ways. That sort of flavors that you get, dry straw.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, something nice. Different. So it's
I can imagine
not that really sickly sweet sort of like bourbon that you get.
Okay. And what about the vanilla influence of a new bourbon barrel? Well, sorry, a new barrel. Are you getting much extra vanilla in there, or?
It's very what's the word I can't.
Subtle.
It is quite subtle. Yeah, no, it sort of punches you in the head a little bit. It's got a nice long. It's got a long finish, so you taste it to start with, and it's all this just really spice, and then it fades away to lots of quite. Yeah, you can get caramel.
Coffee,
a bit of coffee, but it's definitely worth a try. But it's not compared to other bourbon that I've tried.
I really want to try it because the analogy I think I would use to describe it if I was drinking it, it was like the bourbon flavors are there, and then all of a sudden you've got hi. I'm the vanilla. I'm the virgin oak and speaking quite loud. And then as it settles in the glass, I imagine that they sort of level out. Is that an analogy you would apply?
Yes, it's been opening up in the glass as well. So it's going to be quite interesting when you guys get to taste it after it's had a little bit of oxygenation.
Fascinating.
Now that I've cracked the cork, so. Yeah.
Nice.
So Crafty, again, getting back to the winemaking side.
Yep.
When you're making a good wine, like a Chardonnay, you want what we call layers and layers of flavour. So you're using a combination of new French oak, different cooperages, different ages, to try a bit of malolactic. You're always trying to get layers of flavour. So it's interesting hearing Todd say that it's sort of like it's music to my ears, because what we're trying to get is a length of palate and different interesting characters, but we don't want it just to fall short, if you like. So, it hasn't been aged 10 years. This is only 3. And we're trying to get, just layers and layers of flavour. That's where the new barrel really helped.
One thing I say to people, just based on my own experience, how I make whiskey, to me, there's 2 building blocks which are absolutely essential to making good whiskey. It's you got to have aromatics and you've got to have length of flavour. And if you've got those 2 building blocks, then you can build the palate. You can build the the back palate and the front palate. But if you don't have the aromatics and you don't have the length of flavour, and that's something I actually learned from a winemaker. And when I took it away and thought about it, I thought it makes so much sense, because with whiskey and well, any spirits in general, 70% of your experience is your nose. It's what you're pulling apart, and that length of flavour is so important. So yeah, I'm really intrigued when people build whiskies. They don't say, here's my whiskey, it's been in a fortified cask and it's all fortified forward. I get really excited when I hear people playing with layers. To me, that's really, really cool shit whiskey.
Yeah. Taking people on a journey in a glass.
Yeah. And so the other thing I forgot to mention, this is where the brewery side comes in. We've had again, to try and differentiate and come up with 4 unique whiskies of, obviously there's finishing them in different barrels that we talk about each one, but there's also the different malts I've used. So obviously predominantly they're pale malt that we've used, but then the first one is a caramel pilsner. So Todd, you talked about a bit of sweetness, a bit of a caramel character in there. To me, that's flowed through.
Yeah. You're in the temple of malt here, my friend. You're in the temple of malts.
Before we move on to the next one, whilst here in London, I also stumbled across the Whiskey Exchange. I wasn't looking forward. I just happened to be going to see a show of The Lion King yesterday, wandering around the Strand, and there's whiskey shop. So I dropped in there, and holy shit, it was overwhelming.
Yeah, one or two whiskeys in that shop, isn't there?
And that's just one. It goes on forever. Just hundreds of. I could have spent hours and hours in there, but I had the family with me. I picked up while I was there just a cute little canister bottle.
Is that Edredor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
12. So that's now in my glass.
Very nice.
Nice bit of colour. Cheers.
Very nice. Well, I'm still on the Bundy. Like I said, it's slim pickings.
You might have to have them up for some sponsorship rights, because we're up there a fair bit.
But I'm still drinking my beer, because what we've always
get Bundy on the podcast at some point.
See, there's this saying in the wine industry, I don't know if you guys have heard it. Winemakers, we go and do London Wine Fair shows around the world, and the Aussies would always be there at the end of the day drinking the Coopers at a wine show. And someone, the Poms will say, "What are you doing drinking beer?" And they say, "Takes a lot of good beer to make great wine." And I'd now say, "Takes a lot of good beer to make great whiskey."
Absolutely.
It's bloody true. It is so true. I seriously do drink Bundy and Coke, and I like a Cooper's as well in the pub. And people come up to me and go, "But you make craft spirits. Why would you drink something like that?" And I go, "It's like a chef who goes home and all he wants to do is boil an egg or have a plate of pot noodles, right?" And
Worst thing is when you're on the cellar door and you're drinking a Bundy and Coke, though.
Yeah, that's a bit on the nose. That is a bit on the nose, true.
Yeah.
But it's also after you do big events, right? Everyone, distillers all get around, and what do? We drink beer. Everyone just wants a beer, just a straight up good Aussie beer of some sort.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to have to move because I got 10% on my phone battery, and the PowerPoint is on the other side of the room. So I'm going to recline in my bed if you don't mind. So talk amongst yourselves.
Keep your pants on. Keep your pants on.
And your hand off it.
You should at least put your pants on before you joined.
Oh, no one reminded me.
This is the quality of this production.
So, Ian's giving you a suggestion for somewhere to visit, Lukey.
White Peak, Wireworks Whiskey. I will look them up. Thank you very much. I'm heading up to heading up to Oxford and the Cotswolds next week.
Very good.
Week? What day is it? No, next week.
Thursday today.
I don't know what fucking day it is. And I'm going to go see Cotswolds Distillery.
Oh, that'd be good.
So I'm looking forward to that. There's not a lot of distilleries here in London that I've found that are whiskey distilleries. There's obviously a number of gin distilleries, and I've been smashing the gin and tonics.
What about Beamer?
Sorry?
Is it Beamer or B-I-M-B-E-R?
Bimba.
Bimba.
Yeah, Bimba.
So just put it out there. Are you going to put up an 82.33 podcast with Cotswolds?
Maybe.
Yeah, good.
We'll see.
Watch this channel for upcoming events.
You need to explain that to Michael.
So I'm sure Michael's been enduring that.
Yeah.
Craig interviewed himself.
While I was driving.
Yeah. And it was
very informative.
It was very informative, and as someone who talks to you on a very, very regular basis, it was a struggle to get through.
Yeah,
because I've heard a lot of those stories before.
Yeah. Well, I got I think 30 seconds into it and went, oh, that's enough.
I got further through it. I think I got at least 75% through before I had something else more important to do.
But a shout out to the farmers down in the Gippsland who listen to our podcast religiously while they're driving their tractors.
Yeah.
And I dearly hope that your furrows are nice and straight and not. Who said one of which said that was the most entertaining podcast that we've done. So maybe we should do more of them.
Well, let's get back to Michael and let's get on to the second. Because the second dram is very different to the first dram, is it not, Michael? The one that Todd's about to drink? What have we got?
It is.
Three.
Number 3. So the next 3 whiskies are all aged in wine barrels. One of them fortified and 2 of them obviously had red wine in them. So of the 4 whiskies, I wanted to do 2 American oak, 2 French oak, and then make sure that each one. So obviously bourbon was obviously completely unique. And then it was like, okay, if we're going to do American oak, non-bourbon American oak, let's pick a Shiraz barrel. So here's one that's pretty simple. It was aged in Shiraz barrels or barrels that had Shiraz in them. Give them a slight little rinse, and then straight over to the distillery and. Instead of selling them for a flower pot, we went and put some nice new make in them.
Nice. So this is the one that I'm excited for. I love
this is you definitely nailed it on the differentiating between the barrels. This one's a lot smoother. You do get a lot of like those plummy sort of notes that you get. The length is there, and I'm starting to get a little bit of a DNA of Hope Estate. Just on the second, there's an underlying taste that I can picking up that might be yours. So it'll be interesting to see if I can still get that same flavour in the next 2.
So how's the mash bill changed between these two releases, between the 1 and the 3?
The 3, where did I have that? The 3, get this off the top of my bloody head. The 3 was, you got them out of the order I had. That's where we used Pilsner, big chunk of Pilsner malt.
Yeah,
Keep
right.
it nice and clean and crisp. And we've finished it off. This one we've finished off in a brand new Demtos American oak barrel. One from the Napa, not a. The bourbon was finished off in a Missouri barrel.
Right.
Okay. Now I've got 2 technical questions. One, what's your take? And there'll be distillers that'll love to hear this comment from you. So, sourcing barrels from a winery is one thing, but one of the things that kills whiskey is sulfur, and winemakers sulfur their barrels. So, how do you manage that, and what communication would you recommend to a new distiller who's engaging in a relationship with a winemaker to make sure that they don't get the sulfur barrels?
Well, we have sulfured our wine in barrels.
Yeah.
To me, you want to be. They should be communicating with the winery and say, "Look, I'll go back one step. Sorry, I should explain then." So, what tends to happen is the cheaper the wine tends to be a bit sweeter and tends to have more sulfur in it from the big guys. What you'll find is the better the wine. I've sort of learned over time. The tends to be the more expensive the wine, the better the wine, the better the barrel it's gone in. You tend to put less sulfur in it. Okay, so generally, if you're going to a reputable winery and you're getting their wine barrels that they've had their good reds in, which is what we've done, you won't have any impact from sulfur. So we've just given them a rinse before we've then put the new make in. So we've not had an issue with sulfur. But that'd be my recommendation: is talking to the wineries and saying, look, I need minimal sulfur. Give me the barrels that have had your best red wine in them, that you sulfur the least.
Okay,
Now,
that's
for
good.
the uninitiated, can we explain the impact of a sulfured barrel on a whiskey?
Well, we haven't had the effect of it, but just on sulfur, the important thing to remember, and it's also, the important thing to remember is the free sulfur in your wine is deactivated over time. So sulfur is an antioxidant preservative, and basically it chews up any oxygen that gets into your wine bottle through your cork or screw cap. Right. So what it does, so basically, and you'll hear a lot of people say, I'm allergic to wine, or I drink young red wine, I get a headache or an allergic reaction. I believe that's from the high levels of sulfur. So what I say to people is and you'll hear people say, I drink good red wine, I don't get that problem. But what's the difference? The difference is a cheap red wine tends to be, say, 2 years old. You go and buy an expensive red wine, it might be 5 to 10 years old. The sulfur, to me, has lost all of its activity after about 3 or 4 years. So if you get if you're getting barrels that have had red wine in them for a fair while, and good red wine, the effect of the sulfur or the active sulfur should have diminished. The free sulfur should have diminished markedly. Right.
Okay. So that's certainly a good tip for sourcing barrels. Yeah, make sure that it's been in there for a while from a good producer and a good quality wine, not your cheap, shitty goon.
Yeah, but in saying that, they tend to not put those in the barrels.
Goon goes straight into goon.
Goon goes straight.
Yeah, they might put planks into a tank or something.
Yeah, right. So glorified staves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So oak chips is the cheapest way to do it. They put them in big bags, the big guys, and chuck them into the tank.
Right. Okay. There you go. Ian's asked an interesting question there.
we go to Ian's question, I'll just comment on the sulfur in regards to whiskey.
Oh yeah, cool.
So if you get really old whiskey, sometimes you can crack a bottle and boom, you just get hit with sulfur. Now that comes about back in the day. They used to use sulfur candles inside barrels. It was a very common technique, and then they stopped it many years ago. But this idea of sulfur is a not a good thing in whiskey, because it really just punches through. And as Michael said, some people are really allergic to sulfur. I'm not allergic to it, but I'm absolutely dialed in on it. I can pick a sulfur in a wine and a whiskey very, very easily. I don't like it. But okay, what was Ian's question, mate?
So Ian's question is brings up the question: is it better to decant a new make going into a wet, or is it better to decant a new make going into a wet or a dry cask? So are you better putting in new make into a wet or a dry cask?
We always go into wet.
Always into wet?
Yeah.
What's the... I mean, a dry cask is never really fully dry, is it?
No.
It shouldn't be fully dry.
If it gets too dry, it starts shrinking on you.
Yep, yep. So when you're so you say that you give your barrels a bit of a rinse before you use them. In giving it a bit of a rinse, you're giving it a rinse when it's a ex-wine barrel?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're not retaining a lot. You're only retaining whatever wine is in the pores of the wood itself.
Correct. Yeah.
So you're not retaining any of the wine that's still in the actual cask itself. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's an ex-bourbon barrel, you'll get it recoopered, recharred, I would assume, or if it's a wet fill barrel, you're not going to give that a rinse and go straight in.
I don't know what we did. We didn't get ours refired. We just brought them in, gave them a bit of a. I think when we got the bourbons, we had to soak them for a while to make sure the staves expanded.
Yeah.
When we first got them. So so we went into them.
They're getting a bit of a rinse through that process anyway.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
That's the most common way, and sometimes you're quite lucky with bourbon casks. It'll have a bit of residual bourbon left in it, which keeps the cask moist. I was very fortunate. I managed to get when Jack Daniels had their 150 year anniversary. They came up with a certain char profile, and when they finished with the barrels, they released them around the world, and 6 of them came to Australia, and I got one of them, and I was super excited. And so I drained the bourbon out of the barrel, and what did I do? I threw it away.
I'll ask that question. When you get a barrel that has a bit of residual in it, what do you do with that residual?
Well, firstly, obviously, I wasn't in the shed at the time when he did that.
When did you realise, Crafty, that you'd fucked up?
When I put it,
it's a daily event.
Container.
Shit.
Haven't done that again.
No.
You only need to fuck up that badly.
Sometimes, just pointing out there, though, sometimes the liquid left in the barrels isn't what you think it is. We had one where we got like 3 litres of, we thought Oloroso sherry out of it, and it was.
Oh, Dan Hudson-Reed, tell that story.
Oh, good heavens. Yeah, Dan Hudson-Reed was in the shed with us, and we had a sip of this stuff, and far out.
We gave him a bottle to take away.
Yeah, he is so chuffed. It was puckering, let's just put it that way.
It wasn't PX sherry, put it that way.
Oh.
All right,
so Michael, what's your biggest fuck ups and what's your biggest successes in the distillery?
Well, I honestly say, when it comes to the whiskey, we haven't had any fuck ups. We chose our. We probably had about our first 20 casks that we picked out the top 4 that we wanted to use. Yeah. So I'd say our biggest success has been the last one we're going to taste, number 9, which is our fortified barrel. I'd love to talk about that in a minute. I think that's just blown me away how good that came out, because it's actually used a 29, or we're going to release a 30-year-old port next year. You can't call it port. That is our wine. So we use my own 29-year-old fortified wine cask to finish this off. So that's my most successful and most satisfying. And no, honestly, we haven't had any severe fuck-ups with it. If you're not happy with something, you just bloody distill it again and use it in the fridge plant for refrigeration.
So you haven't.
I've always got a home for something.
Bill Lark tells the story. He was charging his still with wash, and he got busy and he was doing stuff, and went back to the still and went, "Where's my wash?" And it all went down the drain. You haven't had a screw up like that or anything?
No, not that the boys have told me. No.
Go back and check the volume records. You might
A bit of a low yield, that one. Yeah. Now, look, the good thing is we're all disciplined because we've been doing it so long with wine and beer. And, again, to me, handling whiskey or handling wine, apart from the flammability risk, our good red wine's valuable. So, a bloody cask of our top red's worth thousands and thousands of dollars. So everyone's attuned to being very, very careful in what we do.
Yeah, right.
And I'm a grumpy old bastard if they don't.
We've still got 2 more whiskies to taste. So
what's the next one, Todd?
So it's the what I thought was number 7, but it's a single cask.
Number 7 is our that's a Malbec. So have you guys come across Malbec much?
Yeah. I do enjoy a Malbec.
Yeah, it's a nice little brother to Shiraz. It's got nice spiciness to it, and big in Argentina. You don't get a lot of straight Malbec in Australia.
Yep.
I love it. So we grow it down in excuse me. So the Shiraz was Hunter Valley Shiraz, which has that nice and Todd picked it up. It's sort of spiciness to it, and plummy characters, medium weight to get out of the Hunter, not that big jammy Barossa type characters. Whereas the Malbec has come from our Virgin Hills vineyard down in Kyneton in central Victoria.
Yeah, right.
Really, really nice, elegant, cool climate Malbec. So again, we want something different in a cask. So we're going to do French oak. We had Malbec in a French oak cask. Let's see how that comes up. So a lot more. The French oak will enhance the spiciness of the Malbec. So Todd, you should see a nice, really savoury, spicy character to it. We actually use. Sorry.
It's really interesting because the initial sip, it's really sweet and subtle, and then it's got this big uptick in the middle, which is all spice and like peppers and things, and then it just sort of fades away. Nice, and they all have really nice length, though, I must say.
Thanks. And this again to get a bit of character in this. This is we've used roast barley.
Oh, okay. You are mixing it up.
Yeah, mate, we are. Because, again, I've never made bloody whiskey. It's just, let's experiment, based on the science that I can understand. Let's experiment. What's the worst thing happens? You bloody sell it off as moonshine or
no one there to say you can't do it, so why not try it?
Life's short to make boring whiskey. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your approach be? You've got, obviously, from the 3 that we've talked about so far, you've got 3 different mash bills, 3 different barrel profiles. What's your approach going to be for subsequent releases when you try and retain that, like a French oak Malbec style with the roasted barley, or are these going to be sort of like individual, that's that release and we're going to move on to something else now?
Yeah. good question, Luke. Because originally, the original plan was, shit, let's just keep making all these different types of whiskies and see what people like. And, the harsh reality, you feel naked when you put these things, you open your cellar door and you've got 4 whiskies lined up for people to taste for a flight. And then it's like, shit, let's see what they buy. And bugger me, they've been buying them all. And, it sort of varied a bit. So it was like, okay. So it's a good question because we've actually rethought our strategy after the first few months that these have gone so well and been so well received. And what I really like is the uniqueness of them. We're not trying to copy what anyone does. I'm just trying to come up with 4 unique whiskies and someone can taste them and see the differences and maybe appreciate what a different bloody malt bill does, appreciate obviously what the different wines that have been in the wine barrels have done, different types of oak and what they've done. So we've actually talked about it and said what we think we need to do for the next few years is sort of keep replicating the style that we have that's been popular. And then every so often, maybe once a year, we might try and just bring out something that's completely different as a one-off, as a bit of a feature. Because I don't want to, I've got 60 beers on the market. I don't want to end up like that with bloody whiskey. It just gets too confusing. So I thought 4 is probably enough. Let's call it a base range, or 4 is enough of a core range of totally unique styles, unique expressions of, like I said, the different underlying characteristics. So we've sort of gone, okay, we need to try and repeat these. Is sort of what we're aiming to do.
Yeah, right. And time will tell how successful that replication process and replication ability will be. But I guess you've got the backing of your winemaking experience enabling you to replicate. Replication, I think, is probably one of the hardest things that a craft distillery can try and achieve, isn't it, Crafty? The variation is so great. Try and do it over and over again. It's quite hard.
Yeah, look, that's good point. And I'd like to think, because I'm a man of science, I say a pharmacist, I'm all about one of the big things that was sort of drummed into me at uni is, okay, you if you're going to try something, you change one variable, you record it, you take on the results, and then you say, what's your conclusion? Did it work? Did it not work? Do we do more of it? Do we less of it? So it's sort of not chuck 10 variables in the air and see how they come down. It's try and be consistent. So everything we've done, we've been very consistent in recording accurately what we've done. So I think that's a big part of it, that I think a lot of people getting new, same with brewing or even winemaking, getting into producing beer, wine or spirits, is you got to be my advice would be, you got to be very, very disciplined in recording what you've done. Because if you then go, shit, that batch worked out, that came up really good, we like that. Well, how do you replicate it? Oh shit, what did I do? And I sort of got sick of hearing some of that from some of the brewers I had. I'd argue with them and say, for Christ's sake, write down exactly what you bloody do, then taste it at the end. And then if you want to improve something, change one thing and then try it again. So to me, it's about
in science
recording,
writing it down.
Recording it. Yeah. And it doesn't guarantee you'll get it right, but it means you can replicate, or you can say that, that third whiskey doesn't have as much length as I'd like. Maybe I'd try a different barrel, or maybe I leave it in a bit longer, or maybe I'd try changing the malt build a bit. But that takes years and years to see the result, obviously.
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, I think we have just found. How old are you, Michael, if you don't mind me asking?
I just turned 62.
I think we have found the non-grumpy young man on the hill that is the counterpoint to Mr. Marty Pye, who's 80. He's the grumpy old man on the hill, and he's a pharmacist. And
he doesn't look 80. A day over 200.
Yeah, this coming up very soon, he turns 80. But Michael, your philosophy and his philosophy is very, very aligned, and you're both pharmacists, come from that background. He takes a very, very technical, documented background, and does he give me a hard time?
Usually well deserved, but anyway.
But yeah, true. But he's the grumpy old man on the hill. So you are the non-grumpy young man on the hill. That's there we are.
I can be grumpy, don't you worry.
Yeah, I can tell.
The grumpy old man.
Move on to the last bottle.
Last bottle,
which is number 9.
Number 9.
So to me, that sounds like it's going to have a good watch of fruit with a bit of spice to it from the French.
Yeah. And just to finish this off, we want to make it really, I suppose, really punchy. So I go back to the malt bill. So we knew we were going to fool around with a fortified barrel because we had this. Well, at the time, it was 26-year-old port. We can't call it port. Fortified wine.
Yeah.
1995 vintage, Virgin Hills. And the bloody corks were stuck in the bottle. So I said, well, bugger that. I couldn't get the corks out. So I said, okay, let's just bust the corks out and I'll tip it into barrels and make fortified wine out of it. I'm going to release it as a 30-year-old fortified vintage.
Yeah.
So we've used big chunk of chocolate malt on this. Wanted to get some nice richness in the whiskey. And what we've done, as I said, we finished it off in these amazing French oak, Francois Frere barrels that have what's now 29 years old whiskey that we finished it. Port, fortified wine that we finished it off in, which just really enhanced the characters. It's just I sort of tasted it and went, holy hell, this is bloody amazing. To how it finished up, and really happy with it. So,
and is it possible to get a bottle of the fortified and a bottle of whiskey side by side and taste the influence?
Yes, we're talking about releasing that next year and actually doing that, having them side by side.
That would be really interesting. A very special collector's item, I would imagine, to have both the fortified and the whiskey influenced spirit. That'd be awesome.
Very cool.
So Todd, what did you reckon?
Oh, look, it's all stewed fruits at the start, and there's that signature that's going through all of your whiskeys. So you've definitely got a nice signature there that I'm picking up. It's just this is the two that I've enjoyed most tonight would be number 9, which is the one we're tasting now, the fortified, and the Shiraz cask, which I think was number 3. That's sort of those two were my standout favourites for me tonight. But this one definitely is a nice, I would say, end of night dram. I can see myself sitting in this and trying to pick it apart a little bit more, but just nice fingers.
I'd imagine it's got quite a oiliness to it, a richness.
Just looking at that, there's some good fingers on the glass.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rich. Its mouth feels nice and smooth in the mouth, nice and creamies. And it's just a very pleasant, enjoyable whiskey.
Very nice.
That's out of interest. That's our biggest seller at the cellar door.
Yeah, right.
I can see why, because it definitely stands out from the other 3 on its own merit. The others, you can sort of they're not the same, but they're a bit closer to being the same as this one. This one's all. If you're going through a flight and then you get this one, you're definitely going to get that punch of real big fruity flavors and that sweet sort of fortified flavors you get.
What about the malty characteristic, Michael? What was your malt barley profile on this one?
It was a lot of chocolate in this.
Whoa!
chocolate malt, because we knew we sort of wanted that rich. When we identified early on that we're going to play around with, again, what's the fourth barrel fourth style we can do? We said, well, let's fill around with fortified, and we said, well, let's get a nice rich chocolatey malt character in there, and see how that goes. So,
all right. Now I noticed
it's reminiscent of 42 to me, Craig.
Oh, okay.
Reminiscent in those little flavors. It's different.
Yeah.
Now, incidentally, it's 42%, which you've gone for a consistent 42% across the three that we've tried tonight. Hold on, I haven't had a look at the Shiraz American Oak.
all the same.
All the same, 43%.
Yeah.
And I'll put it out
42.
there. It doesn't taste like 42%.
No.
Whiskey. It tastes higher.
Mm.
So, you when it gets down to close to 40, it sort of sometimes tastes watery. None of this is watery. It's all big flavors.
Yeah. Nice. So did you experiment in settling on the 42%? I'm assuming you experimented with a range of ABVs before deciding, yep, that's the range we want to be in?
Yeah, not a little bit, not a lot. Not a lot. It was sort of like, okay, let's just pick a figure and do what we can to release them when they're ready, when they look good at 42%.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
So what we actually did, we actually finished them off.
We have some dissension in the ranks, by the way, with what other people like, but I don't know who this single malt whiskey club guy is, but
he's a bit of a joker.
What would he know?
A bit of a joker.
Yeah, what would he know? He was looking forward to number 9 though. So
yeah.
Question on the filtration regime, Michael. Did you just let it sit and flock out, or
yes.
did you filter, or what did you do?
No, just let it sit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We're on minimal intervention, whether it be beer, wine, or spirits.
Yeah.
I try and keep it as natural as we can. Pump it around the winery, brewery, or distillery as little as possible. I just want as much pure flavour and character and as original character as we can.
And that will be helping with the flavours that are staying in the glass, I'd expect.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, well, look, we've learnt that again with wine or even beer, but wine especially, we're pumping it around everywhere. Every time you knock it, every time you move it, you're impacting negatively the flavour profile.
Mm. Less intervention whiskey. Pardon me. Talk about yourselves.
Choking on your own bit. Good on you.
Less intervention. Yeah.
Thank you. That was the word I was trying to which again is showing a really sophisticated level of knowledge that you're applying from the winemaking standpoint, from the brewing standpoint, and applying it directly into whiskey making. It's a fascinating discussion. This, it really is. It's
I'd put it out there and say that Michael's also the touch it once principle type guy as well.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Thought you might be. As opposed to let's see how many times we can touch it in an hour type of guy.
Well, it's crafty shorts come off already.
That's why the camera's wobbling so much.
I'll wait till we come off the air.
I don't want you to come anywhere. So just put it that way.
Now, before we get too silly, I'd love to just drill down on the experiential side, because I think it's a really important part of what we do. We take people on a journey, and you have such a platform out there. And so how did you build an auditorium? How did you manage to pull big names? And what was the direction and motivation of that?
Yeah, look, it was. We started off a little place, 20 minutes out of Bucolban, sort of in the middle of the Hunter Valley, a little place called Broke, Broke. And I bought an old winery out there in, must have been the mid-90s, about 1996. I only moved to the Hunter at the end of 94. I was living in Sydney as a pharmacist, met a city girl and said, I come from the bush, I come from young Cara out in the Central West. I said, let's go and buy a farm. I don't want to bring kids up in the city. So I went and bought a farm, had 30 acres of grapes, bought the old Rothbury winery. Sorry, not Rothbury, Saxonvale winery out of Broke. And in the late 90s, and started fooling around making a bit of wine. And then bugger me, just as we were starting, the bloody coal mine came along and they wanted the coal underneath. So they were exploring for a while and they got a lease off the government and they basically told me to piss off. We'll mine around you if you don't sell it to us cheap and go away. So I came into Bucolban and I bought off Foster's, ironically. I bought the old Rothbury estate that was built in 1968. So in 2006, I moved in there. But Foster's, or Beringer Blass, who I bought it off, kept the brand. So it was just a big winery that had been there for 30-something years or 40 years. And it was had a new name. It was called Hope Estate. So, everyone knew it as Rothbury Estate. 38 years it was there, sorry. This was 2006. And Len Evans founded it, one of the most famous wineries in the Hunter, and suddenly its name changed to Hope Estate. No one knew who Hope Estate was. So I then said, well, how do I get people to come to my place? And there were a couple other wineries around doing little concert venues, and I went, bugger it, why don't I build a real big one and see if we can get some international names? So and the Newcastle Herald at one point ran a story, and that was the classic, if you build it, they will come. And I said, I bloody hope so, because I had no one booked in. So I built it, and then we got a show booked in. Eric Clapton was our first ever show, March 2009, and he pulled 11,000 people. And I didn't realise at the time that was the biggest show ever in a winery in Australia. But we got more to the Hunter than went to the Sydney Entertainment Centre. So I started bringing all the promoters and say, you guys realise there's a market out there for city people, Newcastle people, to come to the Hunter Valley for a weekend experience and spend 6 hours at a concert at Hope Estate. You'll sell more tickets at my place than you will in Sydney. So that's how it started. And from there, I just, we ended up we've had Elton John 5 times, Fleetwood Mac 3 times, Eagles, Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones, the only winery in the world they've ever played at.
Wow.
Sting, Killers, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think I said Eagles. Dolly Parton a few times. In Excess played on their last tour. Not with Michael Hutchence. But they actually supported Matchbox 20, which was really weird to watch. And they got to Perth In Excess and then said, no, we're done. So it started out as a means to bring people to Hope Estate to buy my wine. And then along the way, as I said, 2014, I threw a brewery in there because got sick of serving shit beer. And then the distillery came along, and it's handy because the cops are all about mid-strength drinks. So I make my own mid-strength vodka cans now, got a canning line. So it's a one-stop shop.
Yeah. So will you move into RTDs, or have you already done so? It sounds like you've already done so.
Oh, only for at our concerts. The market's too tough out there. As we all know, you can't compete with the big guys. And if you're trying to sell RTDs, you're competing with the big guys, trying to compete with the big guys on price. I'm not even going to attempt it. Same as the beer or the wine or the whiskey. I'm not trying to take over the world.
Yeah. Just do it.
Well,
I've learned that with wine.
I think we might have found our whiskey fight club venue when we get our numbers up substantially, boys.
When we can put 11,000 people, we'll have it up there.
Have you guys ever watched Farmer Wants a Wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to say yes.
Well, that's filmed at my place. That's in the Great Cast Hall at Hope Estate.
Oh, wow.
So that is great room if you want to do. If you guys were happy to entertain you guys, look after you. If you want to come up to the Hunter one time and put an event on, invite people along. We do it in the cask hall. You don't need to fill the amphitheatre. Cask hall will hold a couple of hundred.
Brilliant. We will talk offline. We've had another question come in. Did adding the brewery in 2014 have anything to do with Blue Tongue's brewery being relocated in the same year?
No, that was just a coincidence. Blue Tongue will end up relocating, but Blue Tongue brand got shut down. So the Blue Tongue brand started out as a Hunter brand. They went and built this big facility, I think down Wyong Way, and Morris is somewhere down that way. And the whole company got sold, ended up being owned by SAB Miller, and they just announced one day, "Oh, we don't need that brand," shut it down.
Yeah,
Poured concrete down the drains.
It's a sad day, that.
Yeah, but in saying that, Blue Tongue did demonstrate to me that there was a market for good local beer.
Yeah.
The trouble is, there's probably about 2,000 other bastards around Australia who have worked out the same thing. It's like wine now; it's saturated.
Yeah. Well, the industry. I was at the ADA conference, the Australian Distillers Association conference, about a month and a half ago, and I think the official count on distilleries now is 750. And we know what's happening in brew space. Breweries a week going down, and distilleries they've got their own challenges as well. It's and that's why experiential, I think, is a really, really key part of our collective futures.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally agree.
Yeah,
And
take people to a happy place.
Yeah. That's why I wanted 4 Whiskies to do a flight.
Yeah.
We charge people to come in, give them a really nice experience for 30, 45 minutes, teach them about the whole process. And we've now added a discovery tour, we call it, where they can actually come out and run through the whole still and taste out of some barrels, and just add that to it, because we've learnt that with wine, even when people come in for beer, the average consumer doesn't know as much about the product, and wine's really bad. The sniff and spit crowd, I call them, sommeliers and winemakers, look down their nose at the average punter and they think, well, you should know all this. Unless someone teaches you, you don't know it.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned, I came into this 30 years ago as a pharmacist knowing jack shit, and I'm going, what's all this bullshit they talk in wine? Christ, it's just fermented grape juice. Don't be in such wankers. And just put on experiences, tours, tastings for people and educate them. So these 4 whiskies that you've just tasted, Todd, they're about educating people to what the different characters you get from different malt bills, the characters that you can maybe see from the different barrels, and different products that have been aged in those barrels, whether it be bourbon, Shiraz, Malbec, or fortified wine in our case. So it's about educating people, to me. And we're not trying to take over the world with whiskey. I know that's too hard. I've got no desire to. Big guys can fight it out. We just sell a little bit at the cellar door and get a little whiskey club going and sell to the members.
Yeah. Do your little part to share the love of whiskey.
Yeah. That's all it is.
So there was a question that came in from the crowd. Do they have to book to do one of your tours, or can they just
no, they can save $5 a head. Oh, the tour, yes. Yeah. Sorry, the basic tasting they can just walk in or pre-book, but the tour,
bucks with your pre-book, good value.
Yeah.
Michael, it's taken me 8 years to get my head around it, but I'm.
What about doing a tour?
Not the tour. I'm just going to go back to what we were talking about a second ago. So Craftworks brand is humanizing the art of whiskey, right? And it hangs 3 things. 1, it's a drink. People have some fun, right? It's about fun, right? End of the day, it's a drink. Have fun. The second thing is no whiskey wankery, no whiskey fuckery. We don't do the white tablecloth. We don't do the leather couches. We do This is what the this is.
We don't
the,
even do white tablecloths very well.
Don't have white tablecloths. Yeah, exactly. and the third one is storytelling. People love stories, and it's part of the human condition. People want to tell stories, and they want to be told stories. And I really do think that is, well, for us, it's our future anyway. But yeah, the snobbery and whiskey, break it down. You know, it's as you said, the snobbery and winery.
Yeah.
I was very intimidated when I first. I totally agree with you, Crafty. I was totally intimidated when I came into the wine industry because I'm not a wine wanker. I don't feel I fit into the wine wanker crowd of the Hunter Valley.
Yeah.
I just do I'm just doing what I'm doing, having fun. If someone doesn't like it, tough titties. So I remember one of my winemakers at one point, because I get a lot of corporate groups in for dinners. We used to pre-COVID, and I'd take them all on a winery tour before dinner, taste out of the tanks, taste out of the barrels, teach them how to taste. They loved it. Loved it. And one day there, my winemaker's there, and he heard me say, if someone tries to talk bloody wine bullshit to you, look them in the eye and say, mate, it's only fermented grape juice. Okay. Then the winemaker said to me offline after that, he says, I don't appreciate you saying that. There's a lot more to that. I said, but don't intimidate people. Let people understand that's the basics. It's just fucking fermented grape juice. You know, so I just break it down. So my approach is simplicity and fun. I do say, just like you, Crafty, I actually say at Hope Estate or at Tower, I'm in the business of fun. Someone comes to our place, whether it's a concert, to have a drink, buy a beer paddle, come for a corporate dinner. We're there to have fun. There's none of this wankery.
Yeah.
Love it.
Wow. All right.
Man, we do need to do a bit of a tour back to the Hunter Valley because it's been a while.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Yep. When I'm back in the country, we'll go for do a weekend up the Hunter. Indeed. On
good.
that note,
right, we can drive.
No, I'm not driving anywhere.
I know you're not driving anywhere because your car's broken, but that's your fault.
And on that note, Luke, what was that?
On that note, we should probably end it for the evening. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you on our little shit show. We will open it up just quickly whether there are any other last minute questions before we do lock it down for the evening. While we're doing that, I'm putting up on the screen towerwhiskeydistillery.com.au where you can buy all of these releases, which are on the website now, and you can book your tasting experiences and get in touch to do the actual distillery tour as well. Of course, there is the Hope Estate. Jump in there, obviously, for the wine and beer and all of the wicked events that are going on. Yeah, I think that covers it all off.
Sponsors?
Yeah, we'll get to them once we finish up.
Okay.
We do have sponsors. They can wait a few more minutes.
So again, thank you, Michael, for coming tonight and joining us. It's been great.
Thanks for the opportunity.
For those that are out there and looking and talking shit, yeah, that's what we do best.
Don't go away, Michael. We'll chat offline.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks' time, we're going to jump the ditch and talk to some new distillers in Cadrona.
Cadrona, yes. I need to do that artwork and get that event uploaded.
You've done the artwork. I need to do the upload because you couldn't do it from there for some reason.
Yes. So, yeah, stay tuned 2 weeks' time. I will still not be back in Australia. I'll still be here in the UK. We'll see whether I can join. I tried to join the last one with Paul from 23rd Street, incidentally talking about RTDs and their whiskies. So I still need to go back and listen to that one.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll make it to the next one as well. If not, I'll catch us all in a month But thank you again, Michael. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining, and we'll catch you all in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks' time on the 11th.
Awesome. Cheers.